But you have to have a process by which you determine which way you go, right? And that's what, in our Republican form of government, this is what we do, is we have this process to decide what's the right way, what's the wrong way, what should be legal, what should be illegal. And all we are doing is saying, hey, here's what we think is the right way of going. Do you guys agree with us? If you don't agree with us, here's the rationale for it, and come along with us.
Could you have asked for a better Christmas present than the Cincinnati Enquirer?
Honestly, like I can't listen. The Enquirer has never been our best friends. They certainly were not trying to do us any favors with this. And certainly there's things in that story where they're I don't want to say they're trying to embarrass us, but I'm sure they knew they're thinking we're not going to be happy about that being out there. Or,
gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center calls them a hate group, and I'm like, yeah,
true.
I'm actually glad that I'm not glad they call us a hate group, but if the SPLC were to like us, we'd be doing something wrong, right? So I'm like, hey, all right, it is what it is.
Yeah, but we wanted to talk about the article today, not so much as a response that we needed to refute anything that they said or that type of thing. But there are some interesting points that they raise throughout the article, just from a standpoint of we can have a conversation around these issues beyond what they said about us in the article. And it starts with the fact that the headline of the article is a quote from Senator Christina Rogner, or part of it, that says they're relentless. CCV is relentless in what they do. And then how a Christian group turns beliefs into bills. And I think the implication of that headline choice is that biblical morality and Christianity doesn't belong in the public square in some way, or should not apply to politics. But yet there's this importance of, as we've said numerous times here at CCV, put your faith into action, do something with your faith, take it into the public square. So I think that the negative side of that headline is you should be quiet. You shouldn't talk about this. So why is it that Christian beliefs are the ones that are so often singled out for this type of thing? Like, don't push those beliefs on me. But yet, anytime somebody brings something into the public square, they're bringing their beliefs.
Right. No, Mike. That's the biggest point about this. Is the question is, whose beliefs are we going to be enacting into law? Right. And that's the way a republic works. Is that you have a very broad society, broad group of people. You have to figure out how are you all going to live together, because you don't agree on everything. And again, all of us are married. Us and our spouses don't agree on everything. I just always pray for Elise, because David's wrong so often. And yet
I always agree with Lindsay. I'd like to say that. I
can only imagine, yeah.
Liars, guys. Liars.
No, but you have to have a process by which you determine which way you go, right? And that's what, in our Republican form of government, this is what we do, is we have this process to decide what's the right way, what's the wrong way, what should be legal, what should be illegal. And all we are doing is saying, hey, here's what we think is the right way of going. Do you guys agree with us? If you don't agree with us, here's the rationale for it, and come along with us. The reality is that this whole framing of separation of church and state, or us pushing our beliefs, is a attempt to silence us from being a part of the process, right?
And though they would never say it, my beef with the media is, and I said over and over again, is that somehow this secular worldview of whatever issue is neutral.
Right.
Right. And the Christian worldview, is not. And so it's like, it doesn't matter what else we're talking about. It could be Islam, it could be whatever, but that's all neutral. And when I'm talking to kids in schools, back when I was in that world, that was what I was hearing from them, is that somehow, all these other views were cool, and then the Christian view wasn't. But in this report, I feel like they kind of stumbled on a compliment. Right? They stumbled on a compliment over and over again. We are relentless. But it was like all these little digs inside of it. I know, Aaron, you love this stuff, but I'm like, this group, journalism, is supposed to be neutral. Right? Here's what happened. Here's what you weren't there to see yourselves. So we're going to fill in all the little, the little blanks in the middle, and you make your own determination of what's going on. But that's not what they are anymore.
Well, yeah, the assumption, David, to your point, the assumption in the article is the things we advocate for at CCV are so unpopular that the only way we can get it done is by relentless pressure and all of these kind of things. And yes, we are relentless, right? David is a relentless advocate at the State House. I really mean that. and so is Troy and Ryan. Like, we have a team that is just and there all the time, and it's a part of the reason we purchased this building across from Capitol Square, was so that we could be there all the time.
If we don't want to work, we don't eat. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, seriously, right? But what they're wrong about is that these views are so unpopular, right? Again, think about things like Save Women's Sports. That's a
it's a 70, 80 issue.
Yeah. It's a massively popular issue. The problem is actually where you really see the minority view getting driven is by these corporately backed issues, right? Things like, like our interview today with Luke on marijuana, right? That's an issue that is fully pushed by an industry that's pushing out lies and repeating them again and again and again and putting them into the bloodstream because it's a huge moneymaker for them. We're actually the ones there that there is no money in opposing, like I said to Luke, there's no money in opposing weed. There's no money in opposing abortion, right? Like there's all the money in the world in performing abortions, but you don't make money when you stop an abortion. But the reality is what we're actually bringing to the table is truth and common sense and the people to the process.
And we have the audacity to push where folks don't want to push. And that's where the anything about being unpopular would be. SAFE Act, there was nobody wanted to get on that bill. By the end, we were doing veto overrides.
By the end, Mitch McConnell was spending $240 million in elections because they realized, people really don't like doing trans procedures on kids.
So it's okay to say boys can't be girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, voters are going to come with us when we say that.
One thing I noted in that idea too, especially as they talk to people on the other side of the aisle from us, is, and I hadn't thought about it much since probably 2016 when it was a bigger deal, as Hillary was making her run for president, and there was a lot of differentiation between freedom of worship and freedom of religion. Mm-hmm. And it just seemed like that idea was so strong on the other side that, it's fine if they believe whatever they want and they keep it in their churches and they keep it in their homes, but how dare they try and do this at the State House? And that's just not a Christian belief.
No,
we just can't segment like that.
It's not an American belief, right? Like all throughout history, even your most oppressive governments, right? The Soviet Union, these radical jihadist countries. You can believe whatever you want. They're like, sure, think what you want, but you're going to do what we say, right? That's what religious freedom actually means, is how am I structuring and ordering my life? Am I able to structure and order my life in line with my faith, right? I mean, even the pilgrims that came over here, like those are original folks that came over. They were sure, you can think whatever you want, but you're going to be an Anglican. Right, like you're going to be following the Church of England in the way that we determine. No, the idea is I want to practice my faith, which means how I live my life. I want to practice that in lines of my faith, and allow my faith to form my whole person. That's what religious freedom is all about. And this whole idea of just think whatever you want. Hey, if that's what religious freedom means, America is no different than China.
There was a piece in here too where they traced CCV's beginnings from the basement of a church in Cincinnati to where we are today, right across the street from the State House, and sort of that idea of, there's got to be something shady going on here. And we would just point that to the goodness of God and to the number of faithful men and women who for 40 some years have put their hand to the plow here and done this work that they've been called to.
And like many of the donors is listening right now. I mean, it's just faithful giving.
Yeah. No, that's to me, like, it's funny, and they even point to I think one of the things in the framing of it that we're backed by the Heritage Foundation because we won an innovation prize for them. They talked about how I think it was 2023 we had a $4 million, or 2024 we had a $4 million budget. By the grace of God, we've grown even since then. But they try to make it sound like we're being propped up by Heritage. Well, even if we were a $4 million organization when we got that $100,000 grant, that's not like 5% of our budget, right? That was a prize we won for our school planting work. They wanted to recognize, but that's the reality. Is our support comes from Ohio families because we tell them, hey, here's a problem, we're going to go fix it. Here's kids aren't learning to read. We're going to start schools so kids can get out. Kids are being sterilized. We're going to stop that from happening in these hospitals, right? Businesses are being attacked. We're going to start the Christian Business Partnership. They always do this thing where they request your 990s to look at our tax filings, which again are all public online. You can go to GuideStar or ProPublic or wherever and pull up our 990s and see what our annual income is. And again, to me, what I was most grateful for, even with this article, was we are who we say we are, right? There's no hidden agenda. We get on this podcast every week and we say, hey, we believe this and this needs to happen and we're going to be working on this, and then we go do it. Go figure.
Kind of like that New Yorker piece about how we're funneling all this money away from public schools. Like, we literally tell everybody that we're starting schools.
Exactly. Yeah. What are you talking about?
And don't take our word for it. Like, one of the people that responded to some of this interview was Representative Josh Williams.
Yep.
And basically, this is what he had to say. What this article shows is it's not donations that make lobbyists key. It's aligning on policy, sitting down, highlighting the issues, and working toward a direct solution through legislation. That is the secret sauce of CCV. You are proactive and not just defensive, because you are driven by a calling that is devoid of individual egos or power trips. You simply want good policy, right? So when our opposition says that we're relentless, you can probably believe we're relentless. When the folks that we work with every day on this policy for the people of Ohio say that it's not about money, it's about our devotion to our calling to the Lord, you can pretty much believe that that's what it's about here at CCV.
Yeah. And you mentioned a number of the policy issues that we've taken on, Aaron: abortion, LGBTQ issues, SAFE Act, transgender medicine on kids being a horrible idea, and those types of things. And it's like, it's so anathema to their worldview that anybody could be against that. Like, that they just have to be horrible people. But we're actually standing on deeply held principle and conviction that we believe the Word of God is true, and the Word of God calls us to action when we see something that doesn't align with those timeless truths.
Right. And what I would challenge everybody is go pull any testimony David has given, or Troy McIntosh, or Ryan, or any of our advocates through the years, and you will never find a time where David gets up and says, vote for this bill, for the Bible says you. Thus saith the Lord.
Right.
And if you don't do this, let hellfire rain down upon you and all. No,
he saves that for the office.
Yeah, he saves that here, but
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Now we will appeal to, just like the founders did, we will appeal to our Creator, but we come in reason and we say, hey, here's the facts and the data. If we all can agree that kids growing up healthy, or kids learning to read, is a good thing, right? Which, by the way, that idea is deeply Christian, and nobody wants to even acknowledge, hey, that's actually a religious belief right there. But we'll move on from that, right? But if we all agree that learning to read is a good thing, therefore, here's the policy, and here's the data that says the best thing for that is getting these cell phones out of the schools, or the best thing for that is creating competition in the education space, and that's what school choice is about. We come and we compete with ideas, but we're honest about who we are and what we claim, because the bottom line is, the minute we separate the reason we care about what we care about from the actual policy, we fall apart. And that's what's happening in America today, is we are separating the values our nation was founded on from the originator of those values, which is the God and Creator himself.
Yeah, and we don't need to necessarily always appeal to the Bible in the public testimony and that kind of thing, but it can undergird everything we do, because if God has ordered creation in a certain way, then we're all going to be more prosperous if we have laws that reflect that.
Amen.
Another piece that they called out is our network of lawmakers and churches, and then typical tactic here, saying we push our agenda. And I thought Troy in our group chat made a great point the other day. Why is it only the right that pushes things?
Right.
Yeah. So, but again, that gets down to the importance of action in the public square, and finding those who align with us and are willing to work with us on these issues. And willing to work with David is a huge part of that.
I'm holding back tears here. I mean, we were you're in a hearing room at the State House, and you have an entire hearing room full of lobbyists on one issue, right? So an industry comes in and buys up 20, 25, 30 lobbyists to push their agenda,
push
in this room.
iGaming, push
Right.
casinos on iPhones, which who in Ohio was like, you know what I wish I could do is play a slot machine on my phone. Right?
When we're standing there, we're talking about the pastors in Greene County, in Xenia. We're talking about, families in Salina whose kids are being exposed to obscenity. All the members know that. And that's why when we walk in the room, the members will text me. I'll be sitting in the back of the room, and they'll text me and say, man, here comes the Calvary, right? The Calvary for who? Not some industry, but the people that we represent, the 5,000 churches and the deacons and the church mothers who worried about their grandkids and things like that. That's who we represent, and they know it. And every time there's an article like this that comes out, it's not just talking about CCV, but who does CCV represent?
Right.
It's you. Those of you who are listening to this podcast right now, they know you stand with us and we stand with you. And so you right here in the battle with us.
Well, and that's where these lawmakers actually come from. That's the big thing about this. The vast majority of these lawmakers are coming from Wyandotte County or Vinton County or Tuscarawas County, right? Like they are churchgoers. They're normal folks that run businesses and things like that, and raise kids, and then they come to the state house and they get in this pressure cooker, right? They get in this world where lobbyists are showing up and telling them this is what you have to do, and unless someone is there to support them and say, no, that actually what's right, you know this, putting casinos on phones is wrong. All they have is what the lobbyists are telling them to do. I mean, I still remember that first day of the select committee on gaming, and I walk into that room, and it's all lobbyists and CCV, all gaming lobbyists, and even some lobbyists that I know are Christians that have been bought off by the gaming industry, and they're looking sheepishly at us, right? Like that's the effect of having Christians down at the State House, because they know what they're doing is wrong.
And this is where I get in trouble around here, because I don't even like to be around some of these guys, and I don't want members seeing me around some of these guys, because they're guns for hire. And even though I'm a lobbyist, I'm not that kind of lobbyist, right? And so I try to have those meetings in private. But
how's that working out for you?
That's on a snapshot. But but we're different. The members know we're different, and that's what I love about my job.
Yeah.
Well, and the last piece here that I want us to cover is the obligatory scare quotes around no limit between church and state.
No limit. Exactly.
No limit. Now,
cage match.
This is a just common argument. It won't die that the freedom of religion means you can't bring your religion to the public square.
Freedom from religion.
Yeah. Aaron, I'm going to ask you to be our civics teacher. Be our civics teacher again and break this down.
That was the I remember I did a NPR thing a while ago, and they talked about how do I believe in do I think the Constitution is right where it says separation of church and state? And I'd be like, okay, so number one, where are those words in the Constitution? That phrase is not in there. So let's back up there and talk about reality. Number two, even if we were to take that phrase at face value, I absolutely believe in that. I do not want the state involved in the church's business, right? That's what we're here in many ways to do, is to say, hey, state, you don't have the ability to instruct the actions of Christians. Stay out of our lane, right? But all the state is a function of what the people want. That's what, Joe Backholm, probably about 5 years ago, did a video for the Colson Center. They have these "What Would You Say" videos, and it's one of my favorite that they did on what is politics, right? And I loved his definition of politics being it's the process by which we decide the rules of our land, right? That's all the State House is. That all the government is the government in America is a function of a bunch of different people that disagree, trying to decide which way they go. And so we're coming here saying, here's what's right, and the direction that our state should go. And these are the things that should be allowed. These are the things that aren't. And so the idea that we're trying to blur the lines or set up a super like Christian government is insane. You know who does want to do that though, right? They talk about Christian nationalism. You know who does want to do that? Islam, right? That is by definition what the caliphate wants to do and what Islamism is all about, right? This is yet that conversation can't be had in America right now. That we need to be having more and more. So again, this is when they can't beat you, they just have to distort you, and that's what they attempted to do here. But
and maybe it'd be good to have Chris in here on this question, but I mean I've been here coming up on 6 years. And I can clearly say that's where all these gray hairs are coming from, family. Those of y'all that saying, man, he looks old and tired and beat down. That's because I am, and this place is killing me. But I will say that it's different when I'm talking in the community to churches. It used to be that disdain that folks looked at me when I said that I was, a lobbyist and worked down at the State House. Now it's like a hero thing. Like it's weird how fast that has changed. To where folks kind of get it. They get what is government. They get what is politics and the role of the church in that. And even those that don't really get it, when you're trying to teach them, like I do when I'm in churches, it's easily, let's move on. I don't know. I'd like to say that that's all us and our work and our labor with the body, but there's a cultural shift that's happening. I think it's because we've been pushed in a corner so long that we're getting sick of it, and we know, look, something's got to change, and just like everything else, if the church isn't going to change it, nobody will.
Yeah, I mean, my view of it is I think COVID, the gender stuff, the transgender stuff
for sure.
Had a big part of that. I think a lot of even some of the CRT stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I know so many churches and Christians during the whole summer of love of BLM and all that kind of stuff, that they heard brothers and sisters saying there is systematic racism everywhere and we've got to deal with it, and the language of BLM was all deeply Christian language, right? It was all appealing to the Christian heart. So there were so many churches that I saw go along with it that now feel used and abused by it because it was actually pushing a broader progressive communist agenda, destruction of the nuclear family, all of these kind of things. And it was a completely downward cycle of it's not just that systematic racism is a thing, but you are racist and you will always be racist and there's nothing you can do about it. And like a real graceless worldview. And I think you saw a lot of churches and pastors be open to that conversation when it first started, and then see, oh no, this is not an argument in good faith. And actually the arguments they're making are completely bogus. So I think that played a part in it. And I think the other part of it too, though, Dave, where all of these issues have sort of brought people to hey, we know Christians need to be involved. I actually think, and I'm just going to speak for myself, but maybe this has been your experience too. I've just become even more bold in just being unapologetic about the importance of Christians being involved in politics. Yeah. I know I used to, when I would do talks, I would kind of approach it of like, I need to try to convince you of the need to be here. I just, especially since COVID, my view is just the assumption is we are here. And the assumption is you are doing something wrong if you're not in this space. Because for so many Christians, if the stakes have become so high, and if we're not in this process, it's going to be a disaster.
And anecdotally, we've seen that too. I know that was my experience first hearing about CCV. This is amazing. I can't believe we have this organization representing us. And I think the more people that do find out about us, we see that response. And so thank you, Cincinnati Enquirer, for helping tell that story.
It's a bummer because it actually was an awesome spread. Like I went and got the e-version of like the paper. Because I don't know who actually gets the paper anymore, but like it was.
Is it still the paper? If
right,
it's a
I don't know
digital
exactly. Or the PDF,
e-paper.
Right, but it was the front page cover of the Sunday edition. I remember in my lifetime, right, when if you were the cover of the Sunday edition of Sunday edition, I should say Sunday edition. it was like a huge deal. And it honestly wasn't. I didn't start getting all the texts until Monday when all all of the roundups and the stories about it hit, which is just a funny change of times.
And funny that I reached out to the Enquirer and said, hey, how can we get some back issues? They said, we don't have any back issues.
Yeah.
Like, oh, great. So do you even print the paper
Exactly.
anymore?
Yeah, right.